So this is what we're going to be making. I know it's a few simple squiggles, but I actually quite like the design. And it's just to demonstrate having a Lottie background for our header of our website. Everything is just a Bootstrap theme based around the Apple website design. But this is what we're going to be focusing on today, having a Lottie animation and having some text and a button over our Lottie animation. If you have a bit more CSS and animation skills, you can end up with something like this, Scrumpyio, where they've got this little cat typing, and as you can see, the buttons are overlaid over it. And they've even got this nice little tail you can interact with right down here. And that's all Lottie animation. So that's pretty cool. And then they've got this they've got the tail of the cat, which is quite fun. So they've got a nice little website. You know, it's quite cute. It's quite funny. So it gives a good impression. So let me show you how I've set this up. I've got my index.html. So that's just the whole nav bar and some imports. So we're just going to ignore that for the minute. This is the main bit of code that I showed you. So here I have a div with a Lottie background CSS class, which will be in a paste bin in the description, so you can have all the code available. But it's just a div, and inside it I've got my Lottie-interactive element. And as you can see, it's got Lottie background applied to it. And in this class, it's got an absolute position, so that's one of the most important parts. The second most important part is having the correct z-index, so a smaller z-index than the content you want to overlay over it. So this text wants to appear over the Lottie animation, so I've set it to 100, and my Lottie to -1, so it'll appear underneath it. And then width and height. The width is variable depending on how you've made your animation and its size. I'll speak about that in a minute. And then just left, right, 0, margin left, margin right, auto. And that should get you a centered Lottie animation as a background. So for the text, the only thing I needed to do was set its style to z-index 100. And yeah, just apply some Bootstrap classes to it, but that's pretty simple. So the few differences that's going to happen. This is a 1920 by 1080 animation. So let me just inspect it. And okay, so as you can see, we've resized it, and obviously it's not that good. So let me just change it to what I originally set it up with. And then width, do that again. So I actually set up the media, the breakpoints, sorry, for this animation rather than the squiggles. So yeah, as you can see, that's a bit better because I actually set up the breakpoints for this specific animation and not the squiggles. And then that needs changing because it's too much. What was it originally? It was 70. Okay. That should be better. Okay, that's better. So as you can see, depending on your animation, you need to play around with the width, and then you'll also probably have to set up breakpoints and change the width of your animation and just see what works best for it, basically. So I started off with 70, and then, yeah, get bigger or smaller depending on the device sizes. So there we go, that's pretty well centered. Also, I added some margin depending on the size. That's up to you. But the main thing being, this is smaller than 1920 by 1080. So I had to set the width basically of it. But if I have a bigger animation, like the background, I won't necessarily need these width settings, because it will just take up the whole page anyway, as you can see. I can also demonstrate it with this space background. There we go. So yeah, if you have a big animation, you won't necessarily need to change the width in the CSS, but for smaller ones, you'll have to have a bit of a play around with them to get them set up correctly and on different device settings. So this one's a bit too big, and then if I put its width to 70 and then 45, as you can see, that's a bit better because it's a smaller animation. What else? I had the farmer, which is the same sort of thing. 45 to get it centered properly. So I'll paste the code in a paste bin. In the description, the main points being, you need your position to be absolute on your animation. You need its z-index to be lower than the text you want on top of it. And thirdly, you'll have to play around with the width of the animation depending on its canvas size that you originally animated it in. So if you have a large canvas for your animation, for example 1920 by 1080, you won't necessarily have to play around with the width. But if you use smaller animations with smaller canvas sizes, you might have to play around with the width, the padding, to get it properly centered if that's what you're looking for. If this video helps you out, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel to keep up to date with everything happening in the wonderful world of Lottie animations.